All right. The talk box says we're live. I'm going to assume we're live. Hey, everybody. Rob Campbell, mortgage broker here in Ontario. Back to our daily lives, number 3. If you're good at math, you would notice that I've done daily lives like weeks ago, which means I should be on daily live like 15 or 16. Anyway, here I am. Just a market recap before we go to a long weekend here in Ontario, Canada. A lot of news this week. So a lot of news regarding banks and their earnings reports. Some banks reporting losses, which is not great. Some banks reporting big profits, which is good. And a lot of news regarding immigration, housing, and the like. Why do I mention these? Well, these impact mortgages. So banks' loss provisions are increasing. That means they're stowing more money away for darker clouds on the horizon, whether that's foreclosures, whether that's properties that aren't selling, especially the pre-construction market. So banks are still allocating millions and millions of dollars into their war chest for loss provisions, getting ready in case there are losses. Also, some banks reported losses. Now, TD Canada Trust reported a loss, I think the first loss in a bajillion years. Why was that? Well, it was a small loss. It wasn't huge, but they're also putting money aside for some AML issues in the States, anti-money laundering, where maybe TD branches in the States, particularly in the northern eastern states of America, where there is quite a lot of TD branches. Just not great stuff going on at those branches. So there's some fines to be paid, and they're putting money aside for that. So they recorded a little bit of a loss, and that kind of made some headlines. But other banks are reporting profits. Everything's great. RBC, CIBC, I believe, reported some good gains. So it's a mixed bag out there. What I would say is the loss provisions thing is interesting because banks are still putting money aside, more and more and more money aside, because they know behind the scenes they can see what customers are spending, the debts that they're racking up on their credit cards that they might hold with their banks. They're seeing the spending trends, but they're also seeing the debt loads taken on by homeowners that they have mortgages on, but just their customers in general. And so they know that the consumer spending is slowing down, but debts are still considerably high. So immigration, bringing in immigration into this, and this is going to start to become more and more a regular occurrence, especially as we move into the new school year. Good luck to all you parents out there that are sending your kids off the first year, but also the kids that might be watching this. Good luck on your first year and finishing up your college and university years. This is going to be making more and more headlines with students new to Canada or immigrants taking courses at colleges and failing these courses. And so they're protesting being treated unfairly. And this is going to start to gain a lot of traction in the news cycle because you're going to have two camps. You're going to have one camp that says we've done these people wrong and we should pass them and make their life so much easier. And then you're going to have another camp that says, well, the test is the test. And if you can't pass the test, then you can't pass the test. And maybe you shouldn't be in Canada for your education. So it's going to be a real hot topic. I'm going to imagine as we get closer to an election next year or sooner, if the leader of the NDP decides to have a non-confidence vote in the House of Commons and we go to the polls, which I can't see happening, but you never know. So now we're seeing the Liberal government admit, again, not to make it political, but it's related to housing. Now we're seeing the Liberal government admit, after years of bringing in millions of people, now they're admitting, we probably have a broken system here. We probably should not have brought in so many people, especially under the guise of this temporary foreign worker program where people are getting paid, the employer's getting a discount on the hourly rate, but the employees are struggling to make ends meet. They got 2-3 jobs. They're living 20 people in a house. It's just chaos. So this is going to start to play into that housing debate, right? Politically, but also housing. Housing is still a big, big issue in Canada. And it'll be interesting to see where this goes as we get closer to an election. As far as mortgage rates are still consistently edging down. Those fixed mortgages are still very competitive at the bank level and the mortgage broker lender level. Still very, very competitive. If you have a renewal coming up, I've said this previously and I'll say it again. If you have a renewal coming up in a year or 18 months, you might be getting calls. And it's so important that you weigh out your options. Don't just try to reach out and grab that first deal you're being offered, because I'm hearing from clients that are being offered a whole array of rates, even from the same lender, for the same term. It's just all over the map. So really proceed with caution on what type of rate you're going to say yes to. And please make a note that, again, I've said this before in the past, if you sign an early renewal, you gotta make sure that early renewal rate, if you're 18 months away, for sure they're going to lock you into that early renewal rate today. So you need to really assess where you're coming out of, what rate you're coming out of, what product you're coming out of, especially the rate. If you're coming out of a rate that's currently 2.5% going into a 4.5% rate, well, maybe you don't want to sign into that right away. You've got a year or two left of that 2.5% rate. So don't just chomp at the bit. There's a lot of fear out in the news cycle about rates exploding and housing and chaos. Reach out to somebody who's trustworthy. Reach out to somebody who's got a lot of integrity. Reach out to somebody who's got a lot of Google reviews. And make sure you're having those conversations about what is the plan. Remember, when a plane takes off to go across the Atlantic, its path is kind of zigzag, but it knows where it's going and it's going to get there with the plan. If they just took off and just kind of was like, Jesus take the wheel, as they say, God only knows where they'll end up, right? So have a plan. Yes, plans change in the 2 to 3 year mark, but having somewhat of a plan is going to help you for sure. So that's my daily live. Rates, housing, immigration impacting housing, and the polls. Federal government announcing leased land on government-owned land to help build homes. We are way behind the curve on new builds, new construction. So this is something that we're going to be keeping an eye on as we get into this election cycle. Have a great long weekend. If you have the time off, make sure you spend the quality time with your kids like I will in a plaza buying overpriced, crappy clothing. Okay. Take care. Thanks for watching. Bye-bye.